The grand chamber of the galactic Concord hummed with the low-frequency vibrations of 100 different species murmuring in their native tongues. At the center stood High Executor Voris of the Vorax Dominion, his chitinous armor gleaming under the artificial starlight. His mandibles clicked in amusement as the holographic display of a blue-green world spun lazily before the assembly. "This," he declared, "is Earth. A backwater death world, inhabited by soft, squishy mammals who barely manage to crawl out of their own atmosphere before tripping into ours." Laughter rippled through the chamber. The Vorax had crushed empires 10 times more advanced than humanity. What threat could these apes possibly pose? Then the Ixian delegate, a slender being with too many eyes, spoke. "You underestimate them. I have studied their history. They do not surrender. They do not forget." Voris scoffed. "They are animals. They fight with chemical projectiles and primitive fission weapons. We will burn their colonies, and they will kneel." The vote was unanimous. The Concord sanctioned the eradication of human expansion. The first strike was swift. A Vorax dreadnought descended upon New Geneva, a thriving human colony on the edge of contested space. The orbital bombardment began at dawn. But when the dust settled, there were no bodies. No panic. Just empty streets and a single, looping transmission playing across all frequencies. "You shouldn't have done that." Then the dreadnought systems failed. On the surface, Lieutenant Kara Vex watched through her scope as the alien ship listed in the sky. Her squad had spent weeks burying electromagnetic pulse mines beneath the colony's foundations. The Vorax expected a fight. They got sabotage instead. "All units," she whispered into her comms. "Light them up." 100 hidden railguns, jury-rigged for mining equipment, fired at once. The dreadnought's shields flickered, then collapsed. The sky burned. Aboard the Vorax command vessel, Admiral 𝗕𝗲𝘀 stared at the feed in disbelief. His soldiers were reporting horrors, human warriors who refused to die, who kept fighting with limbs missing, who laughed as they detonated explosives in their own hands. Then the distress calls started. "They're in the vents." "They're poisoning the air." "They don't stop." The transmission cut off. 𝗕𝗲𝘀's claws trembled. He opened a channel to the Concord. "We were wrong," he hissed. "They don't fight like prey. They fight like something that eats predators." The humans were coming. And they were angry. The Vorax expected honor. Rules of engagement. A civilized war. Humanity responded with improvisation. Within hours of the first attack, human operatives infiltrated Vorax supply depots, not to destroy them, but to modify them. Food rations laced with neurotoxins. Medical nanites reprogrammed to dissolve bone. Even the Vorax's own translation software turned against them, whispering suicidal commands into their helmets during firefights. Admiral 𝗕𝗲𝘀's fleet entered the Sol system expecting a decisive battle. Instead, they found asteroids. "Just debris." His tactical officer muttered. Then the asteroids moved. Human mining rigs, retrofitted with stolen Vorax thrusters, slammed into their formation at suicidal speeds. Hulls cracked. Reactors breached. By the time 𝗕𝗲𝘀 realized it was a trap, 3 of his capital ships were already venting atmosphere. On Mars, Colonel Elias Carter watched the chaos through stolen Vorax sensors. His engineers had worked non-stop for 72 hours to turn scrap metal into weapons. "They think tech wins wars," he muttered. "We know better." A Vorax dropship breached the Martian perimeter, only to sink into quicksand. Not natural. Manufactured. Human terraformers had turned the landing zone into a slurry pit. The surviving aliens crawled out, choking on rust-red mud, just in time to see human soldiers waiting. Not with guns. With hammers. Back on Earth, Dr. Lena Park smiled as the Vorax bioweapon dissolved in her petri dish. "Fascinating," she murmured. Their virus targets our nervous system, unless we splice it with the common cold. Her team cheered as the hybrid strain ate the original pathogen. Within hours, They had a vaccine. Within days, they weaponized it. A captured 𝗲𝘂𝘀 scientist stared in horror as Park injected him with the modified virus. *W, what does it do? He stammered. Nothing to you, Park said sweetly. But when you go home, your entire species will be immune to your own weapons. She patted his cheek. Thanks for the free R&D. In deep space, the 𝗲𝘂𝘀 command ship shuddered as another hull breach alarm blared. 𝗕𝗲𝘀 snarled at his crew. How are they everywhere? A technician whimpered. They're using our own jump gates against us. They didn't even build them, they just... The view screen flickered. A human face appeared, young, smirking, wearing a stolen 𝗲𝘂𝘀 officer's helmet. Hey, Admirale, the human drawled, mangling the title. Fun fact, your NAV computers have a backdoor. Oops. 𝗕𝗲𝘀 lunged for the comms. All ships, purge your systems. Now. Too late. The humans snapped their fingers. Every 𝗲𝘂𝘀 ship in the sector vanished, not destroyed. Relocated. Directly into a black hole's event horizon. On what was left of the bridge, 𝗕𝗲𝘀 clutched his bleeding cranial crest and stared at the static-filled screen. The humans hadn't just fought back. They'd hacked the fabric of reality. And they were laughing about it. The black hole incident wasn't an accident. It was a message. Humanity didn't just want to win. They wanted the galaxy to understand exactly why picking this fight had been the single greatest mistake in 𝗲𝘂𝘀's history. The first transmissions came through within hours, intercepted 𝗲𝘂𝘀's distress signals, edited with eerie precision. The screams of dying warriors played on loop, punctuated by cheerful human commentary. Notice how Commander Drax here panics before the oxygen runs out? That's fear of the anticipation. We studied that. Then the data packets hit. Terabytes of classified 𝗲𝘂𝘀's intelligence, leaked to every species in the Concorde. Battle plans. Weak points. Even the private correspondence of High Executor Voris himself, including his very undignified reaction to learning his flagship had been remotely locked out of its own weapon systems. The galaxy held its breath. On the edge of the Crixus Nebula, the 𝗲𝘂𝘀's 9th Legion prepared for a final stand. They'd scorched 3 human worlds. They expected retribution. What they got was worse. Silence. No fleets. No bombardment. Just nothing. For 6 standard cycles, the Legion waited, their nerves fraying. Then the food shipments stopped. Then the water. Then the oxygen scrubbers began failing at exactly 1.3% per hour, slow enough to ensure maximum psychological damage. By the time the humans finally did appear, the 9th Legion was too broken to fight. They surrendered without a single shot fired. The human commander's words were broadcast galaxy-wide. We don't need to kill you. We just need you to realize we could. Meanwhile, in the ruins of New Geneva, a lone 𝗲𝘂𝘀 scout team moved through the ashes. Their orders were simple: recover anything that might explain how humans thought. They found a child's datapad. The files were unsettling. Schematics for a device that could turn a star's corona into a plasma whip. A thesis paper on *Xenopsychological warfare, how to make your enemy want to lose. And, most chilling of all, a handwritten note. If they ever come back, we'll use their own dead as landmines. The scout team incinerated the datapad. They still had nightmares. Back on Earth, the United Terran Council convened in secret. The Concorde was fracturing. Dozens of species were quietly reaching out, begging for alliances. Admiral Singh leaned forward, her smile razor-thin. They're scared. Good. Now we show them why. The next wave of attacks weren't military. They were cultural. Human entertainment flooded the galactic networks. War movies, horror films, documentaries about Earth's predators. The reaction was instantaneous. The Ixians formally revoked their Concorde membership. The 𝗕𝗲𝘀 collective began dismantling their own war fleets. Even the Krillix, a species that had never known fear, demanded an immediate ceasefire. Only the 𝗕𝗲𝘀 remained defiant. High Executor 𝗕𝗲𝘀 issued one final, desperate order. Burn their homeworld. Burn it all. His fleet never made it past the asteroid belt. The last transmission from the 𝗕𝗲𝘀's flagship was confusing. It showed their bridge crew screaming. It showed the walls bleeding. And it showed a single human, clad in a tattered Concorde diplomat's robe, whispering 4 words before the feed cut out. Welcome to total war. The galaxy didn't sleep that night. The 𝗕𝗲𝘀's homeworld had never known fear. Its skies had never been darkened by enemy fleets. Its oceans had never boiled under orbital bombardment. Until today. Human ships emerged from jump space not in battle formations, but in a perfect grid, a display of precision that made the planet's defense grid obsolete before the first shot was fired. The message was clear: we could have done this any time. High Executor 𝗕𝗲𝘀 stood on his palace balcony, mandibles twitching as the human dreadnoughts took up position. His military advisors begged him to surrender. His scientists showed him projections of total annihilation within minutes. His response was a whisper. What do they want? The answer came not from his advisors, but from his own comm system, hacked, like everything else. A human voice, calm and measured, echoed through every speaker on the planet. Unconditional surrender. Not just from you. From every species that sanctioned this war. The Galactic Concorde assembled one final time. The chamber, once filled with arrogant posturing, now reeked of sweat and desperation. The human delegation entered last. They didn't wear armor. They didn't carry weapons. They didn't need to. Ambassador 𝗕𝗲 took the podium. The silence was absolute. You declared war on a species that invented war, he said. You thought we were weak because we value life. That was your first mistake. He tapped a control. The holograms showed Earth's history, not the art or the music, but the wars. The trenches. The nuclear fire. Your second mistake? Assuming we'd fight by your rules. The footage changed. Human engineers repurposing alien tech in hours. Soldiers surviving wounds that should have been fatal. Entire fleets disappearing into traps no other species would have conceived. Your final mistake? 𝗕𝗲 smiled. Thinking we'd let you walk away. The terms were harsh but precise. The 𝗕𝗲𝘀 would disarm. Their leaders would stand trial. Their empire would become a protectorate, not under human rule, but under human oversight. The other species expected vengeance. They expected fire and blood. What they got was worse. Mercy. Human doctors arrived on conquered worlds before the occupation troops. Human engineers rebuilt shattered infrastructure. And human teachers did something no conqueror in galactic history had ever done. They apologized. We didn't want this, they told 𝗕𝗲𝘀's children. But when you push us, we push back harder. The message was undeniable. Humanity could have wiped them out. They chose not to. On the ruins of the Concorde's headquarters, Ambassador 𝗕𝗲 stood with his counterparts from 100 species. The new charter was simple: one law above all others. No more wars of aggression. No more slavery. No more testing humanity. The Ixian delegate hesitated. And if someone breaks these rules? 𝗕𝗲's smile didn't reach his eyes. Then we'll remind them why we wrote this treaty in our language. No one objected. Years later, a 𝗕𝗲𝘀 historian would write the definitive account of the war. His conclusion was studied across the galaxy. They could have ruled through fear. Instead, they taught us respect. That is why they are the most lethal species alive, not because they destroy their enemies, but because they refuse to. The humans, when asked about it, just shrugged. We've got better things to do than babysit empires. And for the first time in galactic history, everyone believed them. The first 𝗕𝗲𝘀's prisoners of war returned home expecting execution. Instead, They found their homeworld thriving under human oversight. Factories retooled for peace, war monuments replaced with schools, their children laughing in playgrounds designed by human architects. One warrior, his carapace still scarred from battle, grabbed a human supervisor by the throat. Why? He snarled. We would have burned your worlds to ash. The human didn't fight back. Just tapped the warrior's wrist monitor, a medical device treating his latent blood infection. Because we could, she said. That's the difference between us. The warrior's grip faltered. On the edge of former Vorak space, a human survey team discovered something peculiar. A pre-FTL species just inventing radio. Standard protocol demanded quarantine until they reached technological maturity. Humanity voted to break protocol. They left a single satellite in orbit, broadcasting a carefully curated package: mathematics, medicine, music, and one final message, etched into the satellite's hull in every known language. Take your time. We'll wait. The galaxy held its breath when the first human colony ship entered the Andromeda system. This was it, the moment humanity would claim another galaxy as their own. Instead, they planted a flag. A single word in bold letters. Yours. Then they left. Back on Earth, a child asked the question every species eventually did. Why didn't we conquer everything? The old veteran tending the war memorial didn't hesitate. Because winning isn't the point. He pointed to the stars. Out there. That's not an empire. It's a garden, and we're the gardeners. The child frowned. That sounds boring. The veteran laughed. Kid, you have no idea how much fun it is to watch things grow. The Vorax historian's final entry was simple. They could have owned the universe. Instead, they chose to share it. That terrifies me more than any war. Humanity, when asked for comment, just winked. Stick around. It gets better. And for once, no one doubted them. The first human ambassador to the newly formed Galactic Senate arrived unarmed, unescorted, and 37 minutes late. She carried no datapads, no ceremonial weapons, just a small black box that fit in the palm of her hand. When the ancient 𝗕𝗲𝘀𝘁 chancellor demanded to know why humanity's representative dared show such disrespect to the gathered powers of the Milky Way, she simply smiled and pressed the box's activation switch. Every starship in the system lost power simultaneously. Lights died. Engines failed. Life support systems sputtered into emergency reserves. For 3 terrifying minutes, 2,000 of the galaxy's most advanced vessels hung dead in space while the human woman continued smiling. When power finally returned, the box in her hand was gone, vanished into molecules. That, she said, brushing imaginary dust from her sleeves, was a prototype. We have thousands more. Any other questions about our qualifications to sit on this council? There were none. The Vorax, now integrated into galactic society, developed a peculiar new tradition. Their young warriors no longer sought battle. Instead, they competed for the rarest honor imaginable, an invitation to study at Earth's military academies. The first class graduated with honors. The second class tripled in size. By the third cycle, the waiting list stretched across light years. An old Vorax general, watching his granddaughter don a human-designed cadet uniform, muttered the phrase that would eventually become his species' mantra. Better to learn from demons than fight them. Humanity's greatest secret wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a technology. It was a single room buried deep beneath Geneva's ruins. Inside that room sat 12 empty chairs. When asked, human officials would only say they were reserved. For whom, they refused to answer. The galaxy's intelligence agencies spent fortunes trying to solve the mystery. They found nothing. Until the day a small, gray-skinned child from a pre-FTL world solved an impossible equation on her first try. That same afternoon, one of the chairs vanished from the room. Human scientists celebrated with champagne. No one else understood why. The final transmission from the Andromeda expedition arrived centuries after the ships had departed. It contained no data, no discoveries, just a single image of a massive structure built in the system's Oort cloud. The design was unmistakably human. The materials were not. Carbon dating placed its construction at roughly 12,000 years before humanity's first steps on Luna. Earth's leading xenohistorian resigned the next day, leaving behind a one-word note. *Oops. On the anniversary of the war's end, the human ambassador stood before the Galactic Senate once more. This time, she carried no devices, no tricks, just a simple question. What do you want to be when you grow up? The silence lasted 7 full minutes before the youngest Ixian delegate, barely out of larval stage, squeaked an answer. Kind. The human nodded. Good start. And for the first time in recorded history, every species in the galaxy finally understood the terrifying, beautiful truth. Humanity hadn't been fighting a war. They'd been teaching a lesson.